What if I told you that the kid everyone called garbage in elementary school would grow up to become a multi-millionaire entrepreneur, all because of one unexpected visitor who walked into his classroom on the worst day of his life? This isn't just another feel-good story. This is the true account of how a single conversation changed everything for a boy who had given up on himself, and why the lesson that Millionaire taught that day is something every parent, teacher, and struggling kid needs to hear right now. Marcus Williams sat in the back corner of Mrs. Patterson's fourth-grade classroom, trying to make himself invisible. It was Tuesday, November 15th, and he had already endured 3 separate incidents before lunch. First, someone had written "Trash Boy" on his desk in permanent marker. Then, during reading time, Tyler Morrison had loudly announced to the class that Marcus smelled like hot garbage on a summer day, causing eruptions of laughter that made Marcus's cheeks burn with shame. The worst part wasn't even the name-calling. It was the fact that Marcus was starting to believe it was true. His clothes were hand-me-downs from the church donation box, often too big or too small, and sometimes they did carry the lingering scent of the thrift store's musty storage room. His shoes had holes that he tried to cover with duct tape, and his backpack was held together with safety pins and hope.at home. Things weren't much better. His mother worked 3 jobs just to keep their tiny apartment, leaving Marcus to fend for himself most evenings. There was rarely money for school supplies, let alone the latest toys or clothes that seemed to determine social status in the brutal ecosystem of elementary school. Marcus had learned to eat his free lunch quickly and quietly, hoping no one would notice the government-issued meal ticket that marked him as different. But this Tuesday was particularly brutal. During art class, when Mrs. Patterson asked students to draw their dream house, Marcus had carefully sketched a modest 2-bedroom home with a small yard. Nothing fancy, just a place where he and his mom wouldn't have to worry about the rent being late or the electricity getting shut off. When he finished, he was actually proud of his work. The proportions were good, and he had even added small details like window boxes with flowers. That's when Jessica Chen, one of the popular kids, peered over his shoulder and laughed. Marcus drew a garbage house for garbage people, she announced loud enough for half the class to hear. The name spread like wildfire. By the time the dismissal bell rang, Garbage Marcus had become his unofficial title, whispered in hallways and shouted across the playground. Walking home that day, Marcus made a decision that no 9-year-old should ever have to make. He decided he was exactly what they said he was: worthless, unwanted, destined for nothing. He stopped at the neighborhood park, sat on the rusty swing set, and for the first time in his young life, seriously considered what it would be like if he just disappeared. The weight of that thought scared him, but it also felt strangely comforting, like a solution to a problem that seemed impossible to solve. The next morning, Marcus almost didn't go to school. He had faked sick successfully twice that month, but his mother was getting suspicious, and he knew she couldn't afford to miss work to stay home with him. So he dragged himself to Lincoln Elementary, prepared for another day of torture, but something was different when he walked into Mrs. Patterson's classroom. There was a man in an expensive-looking suit talking quietly with the teacher at her desk. He was tall, probably in his 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His suit was the kind Marcus had only seen in movies, perfectly tailored, with shoes that reflected the fluorescent lights like black mirrors. Mrs. Patterson clapped her hands together. "Class, I'd like you to meet Mr. Robert Chen, Jessica's father. He's here today as part of our Career Day presentations. Mr. Chen is going to tell us about being an entrepreneur and business owner." Marcus felt his stomach drop. Of course it was Jessica's dad. The girl who had started the garbage nickname now had her successful father here to talk about success, probably to make Marcus feel even worse about his situation. He slumped lower in his seat, wishing he could disappear into the plastic chair, but as Mr. Chen began to speak, something unexpected happened. Instead of talking about his success, he started telling a story that sounded strangely familiar. "When I was about your age," Mr. Chen said, his voice carrying easily across the classroom, "I lived in a neighborhood where I was different from everyone else. My family had just immigrated from Taiwan, and we didn't have much money. I wore the same 3 shirts to school in rotation, and my English wasn't very good yet. The other kids noticed. Marcus looked up despite himself. This wasn't the typical success story he expected to hear. They called me names, Mr. Chen continued. They made fun of the food I brought for lunch, the way I pronounced certain words, the fact that my shoes had holes in them that my mother had tried to repair with fabric glue. He paused, scanning the room. Some of you might think that because I'm here today, in this suit, talking to you about my businesses, that none of that mattered. But I want you to know something important: every single day of that experience mattered. It shaped who I became, but not in the way you might think. The classroom was unusually quiet. Even the chronic disruption, Tommy Rodriguez, was listening intently. I want to share something with you that no adult told me when I was your age, something that might have saved me years of pain and self-doubt. Mr. Chen's voice dropped slightly, becoming more intimate. The way other people treat you has absolutely nothing to do with who you are, and everything to do with their own fears and insecurities. Marcus felt something stir in his chest, not hope exactly, but curiosity. This man was talking directly to his experience, as if he could see right through the wall Marcus had built around himself. Chen walked closer to the students' desks, abandoning the formal presentation stance. Let me tell you about a day when I was 9 years old, sitting in a classroom just like this one. A kid named David Miller had been calling me China Boy for weeks, making fun of my lunch, my clothes, everything about me. That day, he decided to up the ante. He told everyone that my family probably lived in a garbage dump, and that's why I always looked dirty. Jessica shifted uncomfortably in her seat, perhaps recognizing the parallel to her own recent behavior. I went home that day and told my mother I never wanted to go to school again. I begged her to let me stay home, to transfer schools, to do anything to get away from the shame I felt every single day. Mr. Chen's voice carried the weight of that long-ago pain. My mother, who was working at a laundromat and barely spoke English, sat me down and told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Robert, when someone tries to make you feel small, it's because they feel small inside. Don't let their small feelings make you smaller." Marcus found himself leaning forward, hanging on every word. But here's what changed everything for me, Mr. Chen continued. About a week later, I was walking past David Miller's house after school. I saw him sitting on his front steps, crying. His mother was yelling at him through the open window, calling him stupid, worthless, a disappointment. In that moment, I realized something profound: David wasn't mean because he was confident and powerful. He was mean because he was hurting just like I was. The businessman paused, letting that sink in. That doesn't make what he did okay. Hurt people, but understanding doesn't mean accepting bad treatment. It means recognizing that their actions are about them, not about you. Marcus felt tears prick at his eyes, but for the first time in months, they weren't tears of shame. I started to understand that the kids who were cruelest to me weren't the ones who had it all figured out. They were often the ones struggling the most. Jessica's grandmother used to tell me this when I was older: successful people don't have time to tear others down. They're too busy building themselves up. At this, Jessica looked genuinely surprised to hear her grandmother mentioned. So I made a decision, Mr. Chen said. Instead of trying to hide from who I was, I decided to become proud of it. Instead of being ashamed of my differences, I decided they were my strengths. My family's background gave me a work ethic that my classmates didn't have. My struggle with English made me more empathetic to others who felt left out. My experience being poor made me resourceful and grateful for opportunities. Marcus's mind was racing. Could his experience with poverty and bullying actually be turned into strengths? By middle school, I started a small business selling handmade friendship bracelets. I reinvested every penny. By high school, I had a lawn care business. In college, I started my first tech company. Today, I own 4 businesses and employ over 200 people. Mr. Chen smiled. And you know what? Some of my best employees are people who were underestimated as kids, people who had to fight for everything they got. They're hungry, determined, and they never take success for granted." The room was absolutely silent. Marcus could feel his heart beating faster, not with anxiety for once, but with something that felt like possibility. Then Mr. Chen did something no adult had ever done for Marcus. He looked directly at him, as if he could see straight through to Marcus's soul. "I notice we have some students in here who might be going through something similar to what I experienced," he said gently. "I want those students to know something very important. The same qualities that make you a target for bullies now, your sensitivity, your awareness of others' pain, your ability to empathize with struggle, these are the exact qualities that will make you an extraordinary leader someday." Marcus felt like the man was speaking directly to him, though Mr. Chen was careful not to single him out specifically. Success isn't about where you start. It's about what you do with where you start. Some of the most successful people I know had the hardest childhoods. Not because struggle automatically leads to success, but because struggle can teach you things that privilege cannot. Mr. Chen walked over to the whiteboard and wrote 3 things: resilience, empathy, and determination. These 3 qualities are more valuable than any amount of money your parents have, any designer clothes you wear, or any popularity you achieve in elementary school. And guess what? These qualities are usually developed by people who face challenges, not by people who have everything handed to them. He turned back to face the class. "I want to share a secret with you. Every single successful person I know was underestimated by someone. Every single one. The key is not letting other people's limited vision limit your own dreams." Marcus felt something shifting inside him, like a door opening in his chest. "There's a boy I know, let's call him James, who was homeless in elementary school. His classmates made fun of his clothes, his smell, everything about him. Today, James owns a chain of restaurants and donates millions to homeless shelters every year. There's a girl, let's call her Maria, who was teased for being overweight and having thick glasses. She became a surgeon and literally saves lives every day. These weren't just feel-good stories," Marcus realized. Mr. Chen was painting a picture of what was possible, even from the worst starting points. "But here's the most important part," Mr. Chen said, his voice becoming more intense. "None of these people succeeded by accident. They made a conscious choice to turn their pain into power, their struggles into strength, their differences into advantages." He wrote one more word on the board: choice. Every morning, you get to choose who you're going to be that day. You can choose to believe what the bullies say about you, or you can choose to write your own story. You can choose to see yourself as a victim, or you can choose to see yourself as a hero in the making. Marcus sat up straighter in his chair. For the first time in months, he could imagine a version of himself that wasn't defined by other people's cruelty. The kids who are mean to you today, some of them will peak in elementary school. Their need to put others down comes from their own insecurity and fear. But you? If you choose to see your current struggles as training for future greatness, there's no limit to what you can achieve. After Mr. Chen finished his presentation and left, something had fundamentally shifted in the classroom dynamic. Marcus noticed that several kids who had never spoken to him before gave him small nods or smiles. Even Jessica looked uncomfortable, as if seeing her father's story had given her new perspective on her own behavior, but the real change was happening inside Marcus himself. That afternoon, instead of hurrying home with his head down, he walked with his shoulders back. When Tommy Rodriguez started to call him Garbage Marcus during dismissal, Marcus looked him straight in the eye and said calmly, "My name is Marcus Williams, and I'm going to remember this moment when I'm successful someday." Tommy was so surprised that he actually stumbled backward, and for the first time, Marcus felt powerful instead of powerless. That evening, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. He talked to his mother about school. He told her about Mr. Chen's visit, about the story of struggle leading to success, about the choice between being a victim or a hero in the making. His mother, exhausted from her 3 jobs, sat down at their small kitchen table and really listened. "Mijo," she said, using her pet name for him, I've been working so hard to pay the bills that I forgot to tell you how proud I am of you every day. You help with groceries, you never complain when we can't afford things, you're kind to everyone even when they're not kind to you. You're already successful in the ways that matter most." That night, Marcus started a journal. On the first page, he wrote, "Day 1 of choosing to be a hero in the making." He began documenting not just the difficult moments, but how he chose to respond to them. Instead of writing about being a victim of bullying, he wrote about developing resilience. Instead of focusing on what his family didn't have, he wrote about the values his mother was teaching him through her work ethic and sacrifice. The bullying didn't stop immediately, but Marcus's response to it changed everything. When kids made fun of his clothes, he started responding with confidence. "These clothes represent my mother working 3 jobs to take care of our family. I'm proud of them." When they mocked his free lunch, he said, "I'm grateful for this food and the people who make sure kids like me don't go hungry." His new attitude was so unexpected that it actually confused the bullies. It's hard to mock someone who refuses to be ashamed. More importantly, Marcus began to excel academically in ways he never had before. When you stop spending mental energy on shame and self-doubt, it's amazing how much bandwidth you have for learning and growing. His teachers noticed the change and began giving him additional challenges and opportunities. By the end of 4th grade, Marcus had transformed from the kid everyone picked on to the kid everyone respected. Not because he fought back with meanness, but because he fought back with dignity and determination. Fast forward 15 years. Marcus Williams, now 24, stands in front of a classroom of 4th graders at Lincoln Elementary, the same school where his life changed forever. He's wearing a suit that cost more than his mother used to make in a month, but more importantly, he's wearing a smile that reflects genuine contentment and purpose. Marcus had kept his promise to himself. He channeled his early struggles into an unshakable work ethic. He earned a full scholarship to college, where he studied business and computer science. By his senior year, he had developed an app that helped connect low-income families with resources and support services. The app was so successful that he sold it for $2.3 million before graduation, but Marcus didn't stop there. He used that money to start a foundation that provides mentorship and resources to kids experiencing bullying and poverty. His organization, from the ground up, has helped over 10,000 children transform their own struggles into success stories. Standing in Mrs. Patterson's old classroom, Marcus looks out at faces that mirror his own from 15 years ago, some confident, some scared, some trying desperately to be invisible. "How many of you have ever felt like you don't fit in?" he asks. Nearly every hand in the room goes up. "Good," he says, surprising them. "That means you're paying attention. This world needs people who don't fit into the existing boxes, because those are the people who create new and better boxes." He tells them about Mr. Chen's visit, about the choice between victim and hero, about the power of turning pain into purpose. But he also tells them something Mr. Chen couldn't tell them at the time, that change isn't magic, and it doesn't happen overnight. The choice to be a hero in the making isn't a one-time decision, Marcus explains. It's a choice you make every single day, sometimes every single hour. Some days you'll forget and fall back into old patterns of thinking. That's okay. Heroes aren't people who never fall down. Heroes are people who get back up. In the back corner, in the same seat Marcus once occupied, sits a small girl named Elena. She's wearing clothes that are too big, shoes with holes, and the familiar expression of someone trying to disappear. Marcus sees her immediately. After his presentation, Marcus approaches Elena quietly. "What's your story?" he asks gently. Elena looks up with eyes full of the same pain Marcus once carried. "They call me weird because I like to read instead of play at recess. They say I'm poor because my clothes don't fit right. They say I'll never amount to anything." Marcus kneels down to Elena's level. "Elena, I want you to remember something. In 15 years, when you're standing where I am now, helping other kids who feel exactly like you feel today, you'll realize that every single person who ever made you feel small was actually making you stronger. They just didn't know it yet." He hands her a small card with his foundation's information. When you're ready to start choosing to be a hero in the making, call this number. We'll help you figure out how to turn your differences into your superpowers. Elena's story is still being written, just like yours might be. The truth that Mr. Chen shared with Marcus, that Marcus shared with Elena, and that I'm sharing with you today is this: your current circumstances are not your permanent address. The research backs this up. A study by the Harvard Business Review found that 70% of successful entrepreneurs faced significant adversity in childhood. Not because adversity is required for success, but because adversity teaches resilience, creativity, and determination that can't be learned any other way. Dr. Angela Duckworth's research on grit shows that passion and perseverance for long-term goals is a better predictor of success than talent or intelligence. And where do passion and perseverance come from? Often from the experience of overcoming challenges that others said were impossible. But here's what Marcus learned that changed everything: you don't have to wait for someone else to see your worth before you start building your success. You don't need permission from the people who underestimate you to begin proving them wrong. You just need to make the daily choice to see yourself as someone worth investing in. The kids who called Marcus garbage taught him something valuable, though they didn't mean to. They taught him that other people's opinions are just opinions, not facts, not prophecies, not limitations on what he could become. They taught him that dignity comes from within, not from external validation. Today, Marcus employs some of the same kids who once bullied him. Not out of spite, but out of recognition that hurt people, and healed people help heal people. Success gave him the power to choose compassion over revenge, understanding over resentment. If you're watching this and you see yourself in Marcus's story, remember this: every single day you survive what feels impossible, you're building the strength you'll need for the success that's coming. Every time you choose kindness when others choose cruelty, you're developing the character that will set you apart as a leader someday. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. The chapter you're in right now, the difficult one, the painful one, the one where you feel invisible or unwanted, this isn't the end of your book. This is the origin story of someone extraordinary. The question isn't whether you'll face challenges. The question is, what will you choose to do with them? If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to see more stories of ordinary people who chose to do extraordinary things with their pain. And remember, the world needs your unique story, your specific struggles turned into strengths, your particular brand of resilience. You're not garbage. You never were. You're gold in the making, and sometimes gold has to go through fire before it shines. Your fire is preparing you for a brightness the world hasn't seen yet.